In 24 days, it will be exactly a year since that explosive tape leaked in which we understood that there was a plot to remove the IGP. Parliament then stepped in to constitute a special committee to look into it. We now have access to that committee report. Parliament is expected to be debating it tomorrow. It's going to be laid before the House, and we expect that MPs will now discuss it before the House take a decision what to do about it. It is a very important conversation as we build up into the 2024 elections on December 7, because we understood on that particular tape that individuals, senior officers were conspiring, as we were told, to remove the IGP so they can put somebody else there who is sympathetic to the cause of the governing party. So this is the journey as we understood it. And as I've been telling you, it all started on that fateful day, July 12, when we were told of that tape that started circulating on social media. And us here at Multimedia said, we're not going to touch it because we couldn't really authenticate that particular piece of audio. And then what we then began to learn is the Parliament itself became interested in it, because the leader on the side of the minority went to the floor of the House and made a case for Parliament to look at that particular leaked audio because of its very explosive nature and its potential to destabilize this country if it was true. So an ad hoc committee was then formed by Parliament to look into this particular matter. And the committee began the hearing, and as we know, they went into this, brought in the witnesses before it, including the IGP himself, who went before the committee and was asked questions with his lawyers, and he had to provide their own evidence on this particular matter. So it traveled quite a bit after that, onto the point where we came to the committee now drafting its report, and this was in December. It has stalled for quite a while since we heard that the report had been drafted. But again, if you begin to appreciate the sort of thing that was said on the particular tape, it was pretty controversial, pretty explosive. So the parliamentary committee, the special committee that was set up, had to indeed dot their I's and cross the T's. So it took a bit more time than you would expect. It traveled for 6 months. We're now talking about that report now formally laid before the House. And that's how we got a copy of this. And we're going to be having a conversation about this, because already some of the characters already are beginning to talk to us. Let's get into that as we build into the elections because of what was said on that tape. It had to do with 4 conspirators, right? And as I get into the findings of this special committee, you understand why that description there has become a settled one. It had to do with the senior police officer, COP Mensah. He's not the only person who was heard on that tape apparently conspiring to move the IGP. It also had to be Superintendent Asari. So you begin to appreciate that these were senior police officers in the administration who were serving under the IGP, who had come together on this particular tape, together with a politician. And that politician is Brigadier Nabu. He's a former Northern Regional Chairman of the MPP, who we understood, indeed, he had gone to see to try and solicit his help to get to the president to remove the IGP. And on that tape, we also told of a third individual, and this the case is Superintendent Jibi. And Superintendent Jibi was also brought in for some form of evidence before the committee because his own voice was heard on the tape. He was part of those who were brought in, all with this one singular objective of trying to get the president to listen to them. What were they talking about? They were told on this committee and learned a bit more from this committee that, and again, from the report and the leaked audio, that they, in essence, believed that the IGP wasn't sympathetic towards the MPP, and he was more sympathetic towards the NDC because he was an aide-de-camp one time to John Evans and Tamils, and so he needed to be removed as we go into the elections because you need somebody in charge of the police service who will be sympathetic, who maybe may turn a blind eye, and so that the MPP may rig the elections. That, in essence, was a summary of what we learned on that particular tape. And these 4 individuals, 3 senior police officers and 1 political actor, were those whose voices we heard. Now, one of the things that the committee had to do first was to authenticate that particular audio. And indeed, We are learning from this committee's report that they have done so, that they believe it is authentic. That's the first thing they've done. The second thing they've done is to recommend a few things, that the conspirators aim to indeed replace the IGP. And they found that out and came to that conclusion that that is what they had meant to plot, that they really wanted the IGP out. So they established that too, that indeed there was a conspiracy. Thirdly, that they believe that their actions were politically motivated, and indeed it was unprofessional. They make the point and they put it against the police's own conduct and the regulations that govern the police conduct. And they come to the conclusion that if you look at the police regulations, this and what they did in meeting to conspire, as they have established in point number 2, was against the police's own act, the police act, but also the police's regulations that regulate the conduct of officers. Again, they also came to the conclusion that particularly Superintendent J.B. Anasari, again, perjured themselves before Parliament's committee. In fact, the words they used is that they were in contempt of Parliament, which is, again, something that we read in this particular document. They didn't stop there in terms of the findings that have now been put forth by the committee, that the issues pertaining to the promotions, which is another issue that came up at the committee hearings, and the allegations that were made against the IGP that he was, in essence, violating the police internal procedures for promoting individuals who qualify. And this has been made a big issue. Well, the committee found that part of that is already before a court of competence jurisdiction. Stride itself was looking into that matter. And so it was sub-judicated. They didn't want to go into that, and they will leave it to those institutions to decide. And then they came to the allegations of extrajudicial killings, a very explosive allegation indeed leveled against the IGP. They came to the conclusion that no evidence was adduced to substantiate this allegation also. So very important findings indeed, if you put it against the backdrop of the allegations that we had on the committee and the task that the committee was set up to indeed unravel. They came to these conclusions. But then you come to the recommendations. What are they? A few interesting ones indeed that we want to isolate for you. That the president should really determine what sanctions he should impose on those senior police officers. One of them has already retired, COP Mensah, who actually ran on the ticket, ran to become a member of parliament for Bekwai, right? He lost in that primary. So that clearly tells you, indeed, he is not only sympathetic, he's a caliber member of the NPP and wanted to be a parliamentary candidate for them in Bekwai. But they want the president to determine what to do to them according to the powers given to the president of the Constitution to determine these matters. When my guests sit, I'll ask them whether indeed they expect anything to come out of this. Well, that's one of the recommendations. And then, of course, the Elections Task Force, which the IGP himself chairs, is coming for some scrutiny because of the things we had on this particular tape. And the committee wants that particular task force must work to ensure transparency, because there's a concern now, having had people conspiring to move the IGP, who sits as the chair of this task force, that particular task force may be subject to some compromise. So they want to keep an eye on that and ensure transparency in that. But also Parliament should be involved very actively in the appointment of the IGP. But this will require an amendment to the Constitution, because that clearly is not a provision that currently exists. They also want the appointment of the IGP to be consultative in the way it's done. That's another key point here that we're beginning to learn in this particular committee's report. But again, this independent police complaints commission is something that has been put forth and proposed for quite a long time. Nobody has really acted on it. Parliament has come around again to put it now in this special committee's report, recommending that we have an independent police complaints commission, only because of what we're hearing, so that if these individuals, these senior police officers were doing this, possibly it won't go to the president. It may possibly go to this particular commission for them to look at what they've done and their conduct. But they make that recommendation also. And then they talk about, as far as the promotions are concerned, tie it to those who go and take time in there whilst they're in the service to go and get education. Because as it is right now, the law really doesn't allow that. Whether you are in the service and you gain some education and you believe you're entitled to promotion or not, the law really places some restrictions on your ability to climb up the ladder based on your educational background and the attainment of same. And they want that dealt with also as part of the broad recommendation that have been put forth. But this particular picture here on your screen is one that is beginning to show that this committee itself, this special committee, is divided on the subject. When I say divided, you begin to see in your screens here behind me that all the other members have signed this particular document with the exception of the chairman. And the chairman is the chairman. He hasn't signed, but the other NPP members of parliament on that committee have signed, and that is an interesting point to note indeed. Patrick Boama is one of them, he signed. You have Ophelia Mensah-Hayford, who used to be the deputy chair of the Defense and Interior Committee. She was on the committee too, former police officer herself. She signed it. And then you see the NDC reps on the committee as well. The ranking on the Defense and Interior Committee himself, the former Deputy Interior Minister Agaga, has signed it. You also see in there Peter Lantini Tobu, who himself is a former police officer, signed it. And then you have Eric Opoku, who also signed it. This has generated a fair bit of controversy because now we are learning that the chairman is saying that he really didn't endorse what I have just told you the committee put out, and for which reason he's refused to sign it. We are actually expecting that he may possibly be putting out his own version of things in his own document before Parliament. That is interesting indeed. And this raises all manner of questions, but it is the special committee's report. How will this affect how Parliament considers it once it comes before the House? These are very serious matters indeed. And what can Parliament really do on the back of these recommendations? That's what we're going to get into when I sit down with my guest for a conversation. And Atachian's reasons are very simple. He makes a few points there in talking to sources close to him, that one, it doesn't reflect what really happened before the committee. More witnesses needed to be brought in is something that he believes as the chairman that didn't happen. Again, he talks about the fact that the report itself, as laid before the House, has questions about authorization that he raises questions about. He talks about a separate report now that he believes is needed just to reflect his own dissenting view on some of the key issues that he believes must be highlighted. When I return from the break, I'll be bringing in a few individuals who understand what has happened here and then also understand the context a bit more, but also get into what happens now on the back of this. Does Parliament even have that political will to look into this report and make the fundamental changes as has been recommended by this committee ahead of the elections? Stay with me here on PM Express. And thank you very much for staying with us here on PM Express. And we're looking forward to Parliament itself discussing this a bit more. But let's delve into this matter now. And PMX is always brought to you by Syntax Tanks. It is strong, it is tough, and also brought to you, as you know, the Euros are currently ongoing, and you really want to stay with us. And no matter your water needs, I always recommend Syntax Tanks to you, because the first introduced a double-layer tank in Ghana. Now you can have as many layers as you want. Call them across the country, 0244 335 168, or shop online at syntexgh.com. Air strong, air tough. Now, the multimedia group, as you know, official free-to-air radio broadcast right owners of Euro 2024, and we will deliver live commentary of selected games, including the opening game, which you watch, I know, and the knockout matches, such as what we witnessed today. You don't want to miss it. Catch us on Hits FM, Joy FM, Love FM also, and enjoy the thrill of the Euros. Joining me right now in the studio for a conversation, Kofi Bentil is a member of the IGP's legal team and is in the studio with me. Dr. Adam Bona is a security analyst, is the chief executive officer of the Security Warehouse Limited. Professor Kwesi Enning is a security consultant, will join us. Alfred Parba Dakwa is lawyer for Superintendent George Asari, and you saw me there talk about him as part of the work that the Parliament's Special Committee did. He is one of the 4 conspirators, as the committee has now established, that they indeed conspired to remove the IGP. Kofi, let me start with you. When did you first see this report as was leaked?
You mean the official report?
It's not leaked.
I saw the earlier one, which apparently was leaked. So seeing this was not such a surprise. And we were following the matter because, of course, I'm in the legal team. So we were aware that it was being presented to Parliament. And once, it gets beyond a certain point, it's a public document. So I have to say, being one of the people involved, I saw this at the earlier stages. But indeed, we had seen the earlier one, which was supposedly leaked. And we did believe that that was the authentic report. So this doesn't surprise me.
What's your reaction to what you see there, the recommendations, the findings?
Again, so it's not because I'm on one side, but an objective analysis and a look at the facts of that matter from when it began. Look, you don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be super special.
Yeah.
All right? To just look at the face of the matter and then make a certain determination. And these were the facts. 2 people without any mandate whatsoever regarding who appoints IGP or who should be IGP met in somebody's office and engaged in what is essentially gossip and slander. The sad part was that some of them were sitting 7 police officers who proceeded
All of them.
to malign, slander their boss. When in the service that they belong, there were processes for dealing with any complaints that you might have. Now, look, this was idle talk at best, or malicious slander and conspiracy, which should have been taken up and they should have been dealt with. Now, they went seeking the help of somebody to do something which was clearly untoward. Remove the certain IGP. And to make things even clearer, they did not propose an honorable reason. They gave their reason for wanting to remove who we believe, per simple public opinion, but also per his actions in office, someone we believe has been the best IGP in a generation. To remove him because he was too strict, he was too professional, and that they believe he will not act improperly to abuse his office to help the certain government rig an election. You don't need to have special skills to round up these people immediately and have them locked up. But here we are.
Why would you do that?
Of course.
But I'm explaining it to you. The person says...
It's a private conversation we're having at that point.
But that's why I'm saying at best it was an idle conversation, gossip. But in reality, given the people involved, the conspiracy involved, the motives that were advanced. So the gentleman, Bugri Nabu, thought, this is serious. And he did something patriotic about it. He blew it up. What shocks me is that you have a situation like this, and then it manages to find itself into an august place like Parliament, where you expect there will be some laundering of all kinds of, such spurious allegations. There will be some sort of, sifting and to know which is, serious, which is not serious. But interestingly, Parliament set up a committee. Now again, we've looked at a number of things and I can excuse Parliament for doing that. Indeed, I think it was right to do that. The reason Parliament gave was simple. It says, because of the personalities involved, the high office of the IGP, because of the nature of the allegations, not that he was not going to help the government, but that a number of others that were also thrown in, even though he may be minded to just dismiss it, he felt it would not be the best. So he formed a committee with a special clear remit. That is, 1, check whether this tape is authentic. Check whether it was not a group of busybodies who went to sit somewhere and doctor something or whatever. Check whether it's authentic, number 1. Number 2, find who were the persons behind the tape. Those were the 2 major tasks that the committee was given. And then the committee is formed. In the old standing orders under which this committee came, a chairman is appointed. All parliamentary processes elsewhere, or at least the state of the art, or what people will suggest is that form the committee, let the committee members go and appoint their chairman. But in this case, in the old standing orders, chairman was appointed. So fine, so be it. And it happened to be Mr. Atachia. With that remit, he goes into committee which is a bipartisan committee made up of NPP persons and NDC persons. Okay? And then he proceeds as if he was a law unto himself. The specific, simple matter which does not take rocket science to determine, which the Honorable Speaker of Parliament says, we should at least do an official job about this because there are important people involved. So do A, B, and C. Honorable Attachment just proceeds to hold a court, a full court trial, and then proceeds to invite every and all persons to make all manner of allegations.
But in the interest of establishing the facts.
No. There was no fact to be established which required the invitation of every and all persons to make all manner of spurious, founded and unfounded allegations.
But who was invited that you believe shouldn't have been invited?
It was an open invitation. It was an open invitation.
I believe 6 people gave testimony.
The National Security Minister was invited.
Yes.
Look,
And he invoked his right to be silent.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? I mean, if national...
what do you have to do with that?
Yeah, but this is, if indeed it was true, national security.
The mandate of the
committee,
the mandate of the of the committee did not extend.
But the mandate included any other thing that they found relevant.
So that point, look, you interpret things. Honorable Atachia interpreted his remit, his mandate,
To suit him.
to include any other allegation, involving the IGP. That could not be.
But the point of, for example, you see in the recommendation that you are recommending that the IGP's appointment, for example, should be subject to parliamentary.
What does that got to do with the
national
remit?
security? For example, if you look at the document that they cited, they also reference the national security strategy document, which is a document owned by the National Security Secretariat.
Where did that document come from?
It's part of the list of documents that they reference in the committee.
So the point I'm making is, you see, when a committee is set up by the Honorable Speaker, who was clear in his mind, and the committee is told, go and make me groundnut soup. All right? You cannot arrogate to yourself, okay, an expansion of the remit to mean make me groundnut soup and any other soup. And then when you do that, you open up and start drawing in national security, whatever it is. Look, it was a very simple thing. Now, even that, you remember the public show they had, yanking the IGP off his onerous duties, okay, putting him on the stage, for the man to have to defend himself under those circumstances. Look, I mean, if you know there are almost 100,000 policemen running the length and breadth of this country, 24 hours a day. It is one of the only truly 24-hour operations that really run in this country. If anyone is handling over 65,000 persons running around 24 hours a day in the land space of this country, doing all manner of things to keep us safe, I bet you there will be a number of things that they will do wrong.
Stay with me.
No, let me make this point. Let me finish this point.
Let me finish the lawyer for
let me just finish this point.
Superintendent.
It is extremely unfair to put a man in that position on public blast and then have him defend everything that anybody who wants to say about him is saying. I am surprised that the IG came out of all of that. And as we speak, they haven't found anything serious against him.
We'll come to that. I mean, because this is also happening around the time when we've seen the police issuing a statement to deny that he's been removed. I mean, for that to happen itself.
Terrible.
Let me bring Alfred. Alfred Papadakwa is lawyer for Superintendent George Asare, one of the 4 conspirators as established by the committee, and joins us now. Alfred, you've also seen the report, and I've heard you already also raise questions about this particular report. How is George Asare, the superintendent himself, reacting to this?
Good evening, Francis, and good evening the other panelists on this show. Asare is doing well. The content of the report that is before the media is something that was surprising to all of us because we were all present at the committee and we went through these things in camera. A lot of things came up, but the committee decided to pick and choose which evidence that they would want to put in the report. And that is somehow disturbing. And as it is now, I listened to my brother Kofi Bentil, and he's made certain points that it is not fair for the IGP to be brought in. It wasn't okay for matters such as bringing in other witnesses. It wasn't okay because it was Mandarian box. Evans, what we need to understand is that what transpired at Parliament was an inquisitorial committee, not an adversarial one. Under the inquisitorial system, the committee members are very active, and they are somehow what we call judges, and they are also prosecutors. So they owe it a duty to go into detailed investigation regarding all matters that transpired. Now, the issues that came up, like the extrajudicial killings, the unlawful promotions, all these things were contained on the tape. They were not things that were outside the tape. For somebody to say that we do not need to bring witnesses to juxtapose the veracity or other of it.
But the person who made that allegation, the person who made the allegation was given an opportunity to substantiate, and he failed to do so.
That is the problem that I have.
What's the problem with that?
Because the committee failed to inform us.
5 committee members agreed.
The basis of why this individual failed. He did not fail. We provided evidence.
You provided evidence of extrajudicial killings.
Absolutely.
Which evidence was that?
We brought in witnesses who were ready to testify. Now, the question was, how can witnesses also call in witnesses? And that is the problem, that's the mistake that they did, because, like I said, it was an inquisitorial system. Under the inquisitorial system, we do not have witnesses, we do not have parties. So, for instance, Superintendent Asari, COP Mensah, they were not parties to the suit. They were witnesses. And if they think any individual is going to help them prosecute their case or prosecute the matter, they can draw the attention of the committee members to also invite them. I brought in witness statements, which was presented to the committee. The least the committee could have done was that, look, we looked through the witness statements and we saw that they were not relevant. Nothing of that sort. They kept mute on that and rather conveniently concluded that these individuals,
Alfred, talking about that, the terms of reference was very, very clear.
Very clear.
Those issues, it appears to me clearly on the face of what they were asked to do, were tangential, were they not? And you wanted the committee to sort of then go after those tangential issues. So let me read to you what it says. A, ascertain the veracity or otherwise of the leaked tape. That's really straight to the point. To investigate the conspiracy to remove the current Inspector General of Police as second. 3, to investigate any other matter contained on the audio recording. And it says to recommend sanctions to persons found culpable where appropriate and to make recommendations for reforms where necessary.
Because how can you say that? How can you determine conspiracy when the discussions that took place were separately recorded? Number 2, there was evidence before the committee that Bugri Nabu called Superintendent Asari 12 times to invite him for a meeting. So? Evans,
what?
The impression has been created by this report that it was these individuals who walked to Bugri Nabu and told him that they should change the IGP. When the call log of Superintendent Asari, that was before the committee, showed that it was rather Bugri Nabu who called Asari and invited him. Now,
but how does that invalidate the findings of conspiracy? I mean, whether Bugri Nabu called them or they called Bugri Nabu, they met and they all agreed that indeed met and talked about the removal of the IGP.
Evans, can you conspire to remove somebody whom you've been told is already on his way out? Now, if you look at the recordings, there was a section where Bugri Nabu informed them that the IGP was leaving next year, August. Now, if somebody was leaving next year, August, what can the police officers do to conspire to remove somebody who was leaving next year, August? Now, it is also the case of the police officers that Bugri Nabu was on the payroll of the IGP and he entrapped them in the conversation, leading them to make these comments, which according to them, in their view, was a private conversation. Now, if you think that individuals conspire, now, mind you, the conspirator, you were right. Bugri Nabu was a conspirator per the findings. The 3 other police officers were all conspirators. But the evidence of Superintendent Asari and the other police officers are that Bugri Nabu was on the payroll of the IGP. Bugri Nabu used them to get something from the IGP. Now, we brought in issues of contracts that Bugri Nabu was benefiting.
And I've read the report. I don't see anywhere in the report where you even provided evidence to back the claims you make.
Absolutely, because the report was pick and choose. They decided to choose what they want and leave out. Lucy, you see, this is an increase, like I keep on saying, it should be detailed investigations and findings.
Okay, Alfred, stay with me. I'll come to learn now from you what your clients and yourself then plan to do once this matter becomes before the committee.
An important point before you
come to him.
Let's be clear, and I'm listening to my Alfred, counsel on the other side. Listen, he should refrain from repeating those allegations which have not been found to be true. That's one. Is necessary. 2, he should try not to relitigate the matter, which has been gone through for about a year by very eminent persons at the very highest level. So he should try not to relitigate the matter. Now, we cannot speak about everything. Of course, he believes what he believes. We believe what we believe. After people who are serious looked at it for about a year, they have come to these conclusions. So that ends it. Now, what we are discussing here, okay, it's not the merits of those things. They have been debunked. We are moving on from here. So you should not try and relitigate what has already been done, because if we have to go through it again, they will lose again. If they did it 100 times, they will lose 100 times. So let's just not go into that substance. Let's move on.
And Mr. Bonner, so if you read the report talks about this plot to remove the IGP, but also implications for national security, the elections itself, and they made far-reaching recommendations on the elections task force itself. From where you say there's a security analyst watching what unfolded and now seeing the report, are you satisfied that the committee's report adequately deals with the threats that they themselves have identified?
Well, yes, I am satisfied, just like, and fortunately for all of us, let me greet my brother here and the other panelists and your viewers. I am satisfied because then this was televised. We all watched it. And for me, I made notes. Every sitting I made notes. I put my summary together. So some of us, I will tell you that I had a certain expectation that this is how the report is going to go. Because then when you look at the responses, but you see, Evans, for some reasons, I think that the committee should have re-invited COP Alex Mensah. You know why? Because when it was put to him at the sitting that that is he a card-bearing member of the MPP? He said he was a member of the UP, but you know how biased the chairman was at the sitting. The chairman stopped him from answering that question. But because he needed to galvanize for votes so that he became a PC for his constituents in one of the constituencies in Ashanti region, he actually came out in the media, then said he has been a card-bearing member for several years and has made donations. That clearly contradicted what he said at the sitting. And so, but you realize that they didn't put that in the report, just like my brother here said, because probably they didn't invite him. So there are other areas that have come up after this report. And I think that it will serve as a deterrent. And since 1992, we really haven't had such a thing before us, where senior officers who should know better, conspire.
Well, but the thing is that if this wasn't recorded, you wouldn't have known that he had done it.
No, the truth is that...
Maybe you would have heard that the IGP was gone.
No, wait.
And you know why it happened, because this means it possibly has happened.
Well,
so
the person who recorded it actually said that he feared for what they were talking about, what they were conspiring to do.
And that's why he leaked it.
And that is why he leaked it.
Yeah, if I'd recorded it first and leaked it.
Fortunately for us, if you look at the report, which I have printed here, the report, my MP has a copy, your MP has a copy, his MP has a copy.
That is how we got a copy too.
And so mine is that anybody no one should be surprised because this report was distributed at the floor of Parliament.
In anticipation that it will come from
Thank you. And so those who were not there was put in their pigeonholes. So that is how we got copies of the report.
Yes.
So it's a legitimate report. If you look at, what do you call it, how bipartisan the report is, just go and check those who signed apart from, you know, am I allowed to say Atachian is incompetent? Apart from Atachian who decided not to sign.
No, but you can't say that he's incompetent.
No, the point is that, like I'm saying, listen, you know when we're growing up, the rich boys, if your father bought you a ball and you were unhappy, you take your ball and you run away. But unfortunately, Ghana belongs to all of us. I have chaired committees of national nature. No, you disagree.
The majority.
No. Listen.
Right.
No, he doesn't.
No, you see,
I'll come to that.
Are you telling me that the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, I hope he's watching us, those who elected him on the ticket of the NDC and some MPP members who elected him, have disagreed with him publicly. And he has disagreed with them publicly. So he decides to take his file and wears a smock and walks out of Parliament that I'm no longer going to be the MP. You can liken this to a war situation where you are a fighter pilot and you are in an aircraft and there's one parachute. And you are the one who is steering the aircraft and then you jump out with the one parachute, hoping that the plane will crash so that you can tell a very good story. That is what Atachian
He
has
holds
done.
a dissenting
Holding a dissenting view.
And does
not mean that.
What he believes
does not mean that you take flight, and that is what he did. He abandoned, according to sources, he abandoned the committee. So what? Well, yes, because then if he did not abandon the committee, it is on the face of...
And from our sources close to him, and I put it up on my screen when he believes...
I was told he was going to be here.
Yeah, well, he believes...
Why did he not come?
He believes that it didn't represent the entirety of the evidence before.
But must say no. But so what about the 5 persons, including, most importantly, more the clerk to the special committee, Janet Frimpong? She signed it. So if you look at their old standing orders, he does not, whatever his refusal, because he has a casting vote or, a ballot boy. So he's not signing.
This has bipartisan support.
Exactly.
Because, and these are just facts.
Let me conclude.
The MPP, the other MPP...
Let me conclude. You see, let me conclude. You know the importance of this partisan report, those who signed, because then if you listen to the tape, it was almost like the conspiracy involved the MPP as a party. But the 2 members of parliament on the side of the MPP have disproved it. They've said that no, the MPP is not a party to, except Atachian, who probably, if you ask me, I will say on the face of the document, probably is aligning to whatever the aspiration and the inspiration these guys had to do this.
We haven't heard his reasons yet.
Well, my point is that you don't have to hear his reasons to share your opinion, just like he wants to do. But you see, whatever we even sit here to say, it's inconsequential. We are having a conversation. Parliament is one of the important organs of government. We are asking them to debate this, and the proper sanctions should apply.
And just for context, when this was laid last week, the speaker, the deputy speaker who was in the chair,
Yes.
asked the majority chief whip whether the committee's report he was attempting to lay, this is another prayer, had the blessing of the chairman. He said he did. He did have the blessing of the chairman. And then he went ahead and laid it. Of course, we know his signature wasn't on it. If his signature wasn't on it, then you know there's something there that he didn't like about it. But Kofi, to that point though, wouldn't you be interested to know why he didn't sign it? Because that goes really to the acceptance of this report, but also some of the details.
Did you say acceptance?
I'm just asking. I mean, this is the chairman who chaired it, right? I mean, for people who watched it, if the chairman didn't sign, it raises questions about the report, doesn't it? For you.
What must not surprise you should not surprise you.
Exactly.
Why doesn't it surprise you?
What must not surprise you should not surprise you. From the get-go, a very important point was made right now, which is why I want to start. It seemed from the gossipers that the NPP as a party was upset with the IGP.
Yes.
And so they were doing the bidding in the interest of the party and the government to try and remove him so they can have their way with the election. Now, that was very serious.
Yes.
That had very serious, including international repercussions on the nature of our government. How perverse must a government be that they try and set up a situation to undermine the security of the state so they can rig an election? Then it reflects on the NPP as a political party. Are you that diabolical that you will remove a good man who has not done anything just so you can win an election? And people said those things on there. They blasted the NPP. We must make this point now and rule this line
very clear.
The NPP as a political party and the government in power today has absolutely removed itself from that conspiracy. That was a frolic of those two men and just wild imaginations.
I remember the interior minister at the time actually coming out to say publicly that he had no intention to remove
Thank you. So here's the proof. Now, you had a bipartisan committee. The NPP members there voted together with the NDC members to arrive at this point.
Thank you.
So now come to the point. From the get-go, this looked like Honorable Atachian's personal vendetta.
Exactly.
For reasons we didn't know, and I'm saying it clearly.
Personal vendetta is strong.
I don't know why, but I said it looked like that.
Exactly.
And I was in the kitchen, all right? And we don't understand why it has to be so now. So from the get-go, you are giving a remit as a chairman, you proceed with your own expanded remit. At the committee, when the sessions are ongoing, you conduct proceedings in such a way that you end up in verbal scuffles with the other members of the committee in the view of everybody. As far as I'm concerned, you suborn perjury. You open up for all kinds of evidences to be brought. When evidences are brought, the people come back and then they retract them. Okay, there is perjury. We don't see action on it. And then on the last day,
I was captured in the report now.
Yes.
So perjury is not mentioned, but they talk about contempt of parliament.
So I'm telling you why, if it looks that way, then it must be that. Because from the first day, it seemed as if the rules were put aside and the chairman was prosecuting his own agenda. And the members were not happy with it. And you saw all the scuffles. All right? When everything had been said and people said we didn't have anything anymore, he ruled that, okay, we are going to have another sitting and hope that more people will bring new evidence. I mean, who does that? So you see a certain trend. Then you have a situation where, for some reason, the report is delayed. And then something leaks. He's on one side, everybody else is on the other side. Fine, it's a leak, it's not official, so no problem. Then finally, the report is laid in Parliament. Your colleagues are there doing the work. You are not there alone. Then the person who lays it says that, well, I have his permission. When people speak like that, this is not Atachian's personal office or his property. He occupies an office. And there are things that the office must execute. So, for instance, if for any reason he's not there and certain people have the necessary powers to go ahead, they went ahead and they did it properly and regularly. Okay. It is put out, and then 5 of the committee members signed it. We need to educate the public on some things. Under the standing orders, the committee chairman has no vote.
He has no votes.
He has no vote.
Unless it's a tie, then it comes.
Unless there is a tie,
Has only
it has
a casting vote.
What it means is that essentially you are chairman to, like the Speaker of Parliament. You really shouldn't have a say in this. But where there is a tie and for some reason we need to break it, then you come in. What that also means is that where the regular members of the committee have decided that this is where we are all going unanimously, bipartisan, you don't have a say in the matter. It is, let me finish. It is proper that he would have signed it. His signing does not invalidate the document at all. And I'm going to end with this, which is, again, why I'm saying there seems to be a personal issue here. Have you ever heard of a dissenting opinion of a chairman with no vote of a committee before?
Never.
Never. Number two, none of the rules that I have seen permit that. So if he proceeds to do that, it's like writing a newspaper article.
Well, we'll see.
No. Chairman Atacha, it's important.
Because from what we understand,
Chairman Atacha is inventing a precedent
to put forth
where
his own
a
view
chairman with no vote proceeds to go on the other side of the committee members who have done their job to write a dissenting opinion. You are not a judge. And that dissenting opinion is not necessary, it's not required, and will have no...
In the next few minutes before we end, because there are some fundamental issues in the recommendation we need to interrogate. What will happen now? Alfred, what do you plan to do now that you know what the committee report says? You are opposed to it. What are you planning to do?
I think it's important for us to also inform the public that the report as it is now would have to be debated in the plenary.
Yeah.
Whatever that will come out is what we would be working on. So as it is now, we would wait until the process is completed. Thereafter, we'll advise our clients accordingly.
If at the end of the day, considering the bipartisan support this report has already, MPP, NDC MPs all signed it, I don't see this changing substantially, if at all, if it's indeed considered by the House. You're not thinking about your possible actions or steps you may be taking after that?
I don't know. I wouldn't. These are things that will be between us as lawyers and our clients.
Important
but
point.
What I want to say is that we should not also make an attempt to somehow gag the committee chairman. If he has dissenting views, he should be able to put it out there.
Important.
And we should not preempt you don't even know what he's going to say, but it's like we are already preempting what is going to contain in his dissenting view. I think it's very important that we all understand that we are doing this to help the nation. If Honorable Atacha has views that will help Parliament for a quality debate, why not? Let's all agree to that.
And let me ask you very quickly, because I need to come back and wrap up on recommendations. One recommendation, very quickly if you may, is the recommendation that the president should sanction your client. What do you make of that? You accept that recommendation?
You know, it's the conclusion or the recommendation has no basis. And if the president, if a recommendation has been made to the president, you will know that the police are governed also by their own rules and conducts. There's a service inquiry and all those things. Whatever that will do, I wouldn't want to say anything in relation to the strategy that we have.
So you seem to suggest now that you want to subject yourselves to the police internal inquiry and not an external body like the president sanctioning it.
The point I'm making is that a recommendation has been made. It remains to be a recommendation by the committee, not even Parliament yet. The committee has to go on the floor of Parliament, debated, then a consensus is reached, if they're able to reach a consensus. That is what will be directed to the president. So right now, let us not go ahead of ourselves.
Okay. Let me quickly come back to the studio. Very briefly, because I need to come to him and on the recommendations.
The committee today is functus officio. The committee has finished its work and has nothing anymore to do.
Yeah.
Number two, This is now the property of Parliament and will be debated openly. If Atachian has anything to say, he can go and say it openly as a member of Parliament. But in terms of writing a dissenting opinion, it is not necessary and he will be inventing rules. Indeed, it should not be allowed. But if he chooses to do that, that is fine. It will have no effect. But let's be clear. The committee is functus officio. It has nothing to do anymore. Parliament now owns that document.
Yeah.
We'll debate.
Adam, let's look at the recommendation. The top one, obviously, is the president taking steps to sanction them. What do you make of that?
Well, I wouldn't say that is the top one. The top one is to really look at the appointment and tenure.
I mean, we'll come to that, but I want you to address that for me.
Well, I think it's important. I have had people say, the president is who cleared these persons. And I said, no. Let's not preempt what will happen.
We should leave it for the president.
Leave it for the president, because the president knows the lady, Ophelia, Honorable Ophelia, is on this committee before the president appointed her as a cabinet minister. Yeah. And you know, Atachian used to be a cabinet minister, removed before. So my point is that I'm just trying to say, I want to believe that the president has distanced himself by way of this two MPs signing, distanced himself and the party from these old gossip and allegations. And so as far as I'm concerned, I know the president is going to ensure that the right thing is done.
As in sanctioning these
people.
In spite of the fact that COP Mensa is recently
COP Mensa, I have also heard people say that he has retired. It's inconsequential. I tell you what, he committed this offense, it's not alleged, when he was in service. Go and check, any security historian will tell you that people who died in the Second World War, First World War, and some of them allegedly deserted. They might have died and they were logged as deserted and they were dishonorably released. Later, when the information came and they found their fighter jet and DNA connected them recently, they reinstated them and they would give you, release you with all the honors. And so mine is that those who are saying that he's left the service. He committed the crime whilst he's there. So touch wood, even if he was not alive, his uniform would be tried. When the uniform is tried, if he likes, he can get lawyers to the family can get lawyers. Let's say if he wasn't around, to probably represent him in that trial. Once they are done, if he's free, they say he's free. And then honorably they release him. For me, and if he's convicted, the uniform would dishonorably, they will sentence the uniform
post his retirement,
and he's gone. And so mine is that,
and let's quickly count, because I need
so mine is that when you look at the other recommendation,
which is that the appointment of the IGP
I have seen something that is in Parliament, in court, I think it's sub judice. And when you look at the reliefs, those who are in court are, looking, asking for, it's almost like this. And so mine is that, for instance, President Ruto, if you listen to his recent conversation, he said that he promised to have a 10-year system for the police, and he did that. And so anybody who says he intended to manipulate the police to kill people is a liar. That's a strong point for him. So I want to believe that the president, 4 or 5 months, 4 months technically. Let me also say this very important.
So what do you want? What do you want there? You want him to simply adhere to the recommendations?
Adhere to them. And I have heard people, 1 minute, just 1 minute.
No, I don't have a minute,
30 seconds, 30 seconds. You see this fake report that came out internationally, by international conventions.
Fake reports about the removal of the IGP?
By international conventions, when nations are going into elections, usually the convention is that you don't tamper with the structure of the security service. Trump wanted to do it before their elections. And before whatever he had, before it got to Senate, they shut it down. They shut it down. Those his advisors at what's the name? White House shut it down. And so mine is that we are not so different. And so
it shouldn't dare.
It's something that, because then it will create chaos.
Kofi, the recommendations.
I think we should trust that the executive wing will take a recommendation.
Yes, that's serious.
Which ones do you think, for you, disciplining them?
You see, not just discipline. Listen, we need to strengthen institutions. There was an error inherent in Parliament usurping the rights of the police council. When you have certain policemen, jumping over and coming to you and trying to try their boss, and then you accept it. So we don't have time, so I won't go into that. But we should take it back to where it should be. And then some criminal stuff has come up. Let us deal
Which
with
criminal
it
stuff
again.
is that?
Oh, the conspiracies and all those other things that have come up.
Conspiracy.
So you expect criminal prosecutions?
Well, there should be. Look, a lot of things have to come out of this so that it never happens again.
Such
Look,
as?
Such as you should never put the sitting IGP in the middle of his job, in a predicament where his junior officers have come to tell you things which were not true as proven, and then he has to stop his work to come and do this work. So we shouldn't do that. And concerning the issue of the remover, let me just say this. Look, Imani is in court today as we speak with Professor Inning, saying that per the reading of the various laws, the president may not, cannot, should not, okay, ask the IGP or anybody. There are a number of security heads, okay, to produce only fire service and all. Until that case is determined by the Supreme Court, okay, you don't mess with any status quo. Plus, what Adams Bona said, which is a security issue, which is international, that at a time like this, when security issues are heightened, you don't try and mess with things. In any case, none of us is saying the government is trying to do so. There are some busy bodies with nefarious intent. And the problem is that we are allowing them to go on. This stuff should be investigated. We should find the journalists who published them and find where they got it from. And somebody has to answer questions.
The allegation that the IGP had been
They
asked to proceed
are
on
serious.
They're serious.
You just throw these things out and cause chaos. This is what panic looks like. Okay, we just have a very stable system. So some of these things, we just treat them with the contempt it deserves. But indeed, they can cause all kinds of disruptions in the authority system. So we should go after these things and make sure that, look, we keep these things. Ghana is blessed. Once in a while, we get people like IGP Dampare. Then we find a way to mess it up. Now, not all of us want that. So when these things happen, the rest of us who believe that we want things good for this country should rise up and speak. When this was happening, my shock was that you didn't hear the eminent voices in this country speaking. IGP Dampare was left to defend himself alone. He first did not have a legal team. When we realized where it was going and how, determined some people were, he had to form a legal team. We had to join to go and defend him. It could have gone differently if he hadn't found his own way. And by the way, this is not the police paying his legal team. If this country wants good people in office and to do their work and do it well, we must find a way of protecting them if they are doing their job well. And when such spurious allegations arise, the system must protect them and not leave them to protect themselves.
But you trust that the presidency can indeed carry out that recommendation to sanction the officers?
There is no impediment in their way.
Okay.
In fact, the rules of the police service itself make it untenable for the sitting police officers to continue to be working under the IGP.
Post his retirement, you believe that the president can still sanction him?
It's not the president. Post-retirement, in fact, posthumously, like you said, you can be called back because you did it during your service and you'll be dealt with.
Yeah, but as it is, the recommendation is for the presidency to take that action.
Yes, the presidency...
You don't have any problem with that?
No, absolutely. Okay. The presidency is essentially the boss of the police to a certain extent. But I think a number of them, the president has to punt to the police council also.
To do it.
So that
but then the people raise it, but the IGP is obviously in charge, so maybe an independent person.
But then again, that is where there's an issue in law, we call it necessity. He is the boss. He has to handle it as a matter of necessity. So when it's being handled, nobody should come and say this is a witch hunt.
Okay. And there's something I want to add.
Just run out of time on this, and I know this is a conversation. We'll return to this because this might go to Parliament for a debate, and we'll come back. Maybe we'll hear Atachia's views on this. We'll all be wiser by the time that Parliament ends and hear what his views are on what's happening. And enjoy the rest of it.